Economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Saeed Chengriha, is on an official visit to the Republic of Korea to take part in the International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition ADEX 2025. The Israeli army has pursued its bombardments against the Gaza Strip, killing and wounding several Palestinians near Jabalia in the northern part of the territory. Afghanistan and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire during talks mediated by Qatar and Turkey following week-long fierce and deadly clashes on their disputed border. And those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. I'm Asya Abukar. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has presided over a cabinet meeting devoted to a draft organic law on the judiciary, the monitoring of the desalination plants, and the preparation for the 4th edition of the African Startup Conference. And now the Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has discussed with his Egyptian counterpart, Mr. Badra Abdelati, the brotherly and cooperation relations linking the two countries. In a phone call yesterday evening, the two foreign ministers examined the prospects for promoting relations to higher levels and wider areas as part of the preparations for the holding of the Algerian-Egyptian High Joint Commission in accordance with the guidelines given by the presidents of the two countries during their last phone conversation. The two ministers also discussed a number of current regional issues, including the latest developments in the Palestinian cause following the coming into force of the ceasefire agreement in Gaza. They also discussed the situation in Libya ahead of the next meeting of the tripartite neighborhood mechanism, which will be held in Algeria. The Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, Army General Saeed Chengriha, is on an official visit to the Republic of Korea to take part in the International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition ADEX 2025. His visit is at the invitation of the Minister of National Defense of the Republic of Korea. During this visit, which is part of strengthening of cooperation between the National People's Army and the Armed Forces of the Republic of Korea, the two parties are also expected to examine issues of common concern. You are still listening to Radio Algeria International, and we're still in Algiers. The Minister of State, Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has received the Secretary General of the General Federation of Jordanian Trade Unions, Khalid El Fanatsa, in the presence of the Secretary General of the General Federation of Algerian Workers and the Secretary General of the National Federation of Petroleum. Mariam Barshi has the details.
The meeting was an opportunity to exchange views on strengthening trade union cooperation between the two sides, particularly in the areas of knowledge exchange, in facilitating social dialogue and training trade union leaders. The two parties focused on the importance of coordinating joint efforts, both at the trade union level and within the economic and investment partnerships between the two countries, reflecting the spirit of Arab solidarity and integration between Algeria and Jordan in various fields, particularly in the hydrocarbons and mining sectors. Mr. Arkab stressed on the occasion the importance of promoting cooperation in the field of exchanging expertise, experiences and modern technologies in the exploitation and transformation of mineral resources, calling for intensified bilateral exchanges to strengthen partnership and investment ties between Algerian and Jordanian institutions.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and the Minister of Agriculture, Rural Development and Fisheries, Yassin Al-Mahdi Walid, has discussed in Rome with the Director General of Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, FAO, Chu Dong-kyu, ways to deepen bilateral cooperation and develop joint programs aimed at achieving food security and sustainable agricultural development. Mariam Borshiegan.
The meeting, held on the sidelines of the World Food Forum, allowed both parties to discuss several strategic areas related to the modernization and development of the Algerian agricultural sector. In this context, both parties emphasized the importance of developing innovative agricultural models adapted to arid and semi-arid regions, enabling Algeria to become a leading regional hub in the field of climate-smart Saharan agriculture. During the meeting, the minister highlighted the government's efforts to modernize the storage system, improve agricultural logistics services and develop value chains to reduce food waste and strengthen national food security. He also reaffirmed Algeria's commitment to strengthening technology transfer and technical expertise programs that can contribute to improving agricultural productivity and developing modern and sustainable practices. The discussion focused on the Green Dam project launched by Algeria and supported by the FAO, or FAO, and the Green Climate Fund. The two parties also discussed mechanisms for accelerating the path of reforestation and combating desertification and land degradation as part of Algeria's commitment to addressing climate challenges and restoring vegetation cover. On the occasion, the Minister of Agriculture hailed the FAO's continued support to Algeria, which he said is determined to continue strengthening the strategic partnership in the service of food security and sustainable development. For his part, the FAO Director General praised Algeria's efforts to develop its agricultural sector, expressing the UN organization's readiness to continue providing the technical and institutional support necessary to achieve Algeria's development objectives. The meeting is part of Algeria's active participation in the World Food Forum and its commitment to strengthening effective international partnerships aimed at achieving a sustainable agricultural transition and building a resilient food system in the face of climate challenges.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Azouz Nasri, has chaired the consultative meeting of the Islamic Group of Parliaments of Member States of the Parliamentary Union of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation held in Geneva, Switzerland. During the meeting, which is devoted to exchanging views with the aim of adopting a unified position on issues of common interest to Islamic countries ahead of the opening of the 151st Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union, Mr. Nasri highlighted the commitment to keeping the Palestinian cause ahead or under focus in the International Parliamentary Forum and building on international momentum supporting the cause. It's worth noting that a delegation from both chambers of Algerian Parliament is participating in the assembly of the IPU. And now an international conference on empowering Arab trade unions in the face of the impact of artificial intelligence on the labor market is being held in Algiers with the aim of strengthening contracts and exchanging experiences between labor stakeholders in Arab countries. Mohammed Khatil tells us more.
The conference, organized by the Arab Trade Union Confederation, ATUC, in coordination with the General Union of Algerian Workers, UGTA, is attended by representatives from several Arab unions and trade union organizations, as well as the International Trade Union Confederation, ITUC, the Friedrich Ebert Foundation, and experts in digitalization and artificial intelligence. In his opening speech, UGTA Secretary General Ammar Takjout stated that digitalization and artificial intelligence are topical issues in all fields, hence the need for a good understanding of their positive and negative impacts on the labor world, knowing that AI has created new professions and led to the disappearance of others. The UGTA is working on sharing its experience with its African and international counterparts in this field, announcing in this regard the organization of several events on digitalization and AI and their relationship with the world of work, with a view to explaining the challenges and issues related to this new field and strengthening the training of trade unionists and workers in the various aspects of digitalization. For her part, the Executive Secretary of the Arab Confederation of Trade Unions, Hind Ben Ammar, stressed the importance of this meeting in strengthening contacts and exchanging experiences between labor stakeholders in the Arab world, welcoming the qualitative leap achieved by Algeria in the field of digital transformation.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and to the Middle East now. The Israeli army has pursued its bombardments against the Gaza Strip, killing and wounding several Palestinians near Jabalia in the northern part of the territory. According to the news agency Wafa, at least 2 Palestinians were killed and several others injured in today's attack. This came as the Palestinian Hamas movement denounced as a blatant violation of the ceasefire of the Israeli occupying authorities' decision to keep the major Rafah cross point closed. It considered the Israeli move a denial of the commitments taken by the Israeli occupying authorities before the mediators and guarantors, which required that all the agreement's provisions be respected. The Palestinian movement stressed that the closure of Rafah would prevent the evacuation of the sick and wounded, the citizens' movement, and the entry of special equipment necessary to the search of missing people, and thus would delay the recovery and handing over of bodies. This came as the UN Mine Action Service, Luke Irvin, warned against the dangers of unexploded ammunition in the Gaza Strip, notably after the coming into force of the ceasefire. He also argued that many people had returned home after having been displaced on account of a warning that the mine clearing operations will take much time. In the meantime, hundreds of protesters took to the streets of German capital Berlin to express their solidarity with the Palestinian people and denounce the Israeli attacks on Gaza. Similar protests were also staged in France to press for an end to the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories and to their apartheid regime. Meanwhile, huge crowds have taken part in the so-called No Kings protests against President Donald Trump's policies in cities across the U.S., including New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Miami, and Los Angeles. Thousands packed New York City's iconic Times Square and streets all around, with people holding signs with slogans like "Democracy, not a monarchy," and "The Constitution is not optional." Ahead of the demonstrations, Trump allies accused the protesters of being linked with the far-left Antifa movement and condemned what they called the Hate America rally. Several U.S. states have mobilized the National Guard, but organizers said the events, which drew nearly 7 million people, were peaceful. And now Afghanistan and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire and talks mediated by Qatar and Turkey following a week of fierce and deadly clashes along their disputed borders. Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said the two South Asian nations agreed to the ceasefire and the establishment of mechanisms to strengthen lasting peace and stability between the two countries. Doha said that the two countries also agreed to hold follow-up meetings in the coming days to ensure the sustainability of the ceasefire and verify its implementation in a reliable and sustainable manner. Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister hailed the deal, calling it a first step in the right direction. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. That's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to the international event of the week.
The international event of the week.
A tenuous but significant ceasefire is holding in Gaza, marking a pivotal time in the first stage of U.S. President Trump's peace plan. The plan is considered a framework for negotiations held under international mediation, is aimed at ending the war in Gaza and allowing in humanitarian aid into the devastated Palestinian territory. In this respect, the UN humanitarian chief, Tom Fletcher, urged the Israeli occupying authorities to open more crossing points and on both sides to implement the terms of the ceasefire agreement, saying it is essential to not squander the progress made through the deal. In a similar move, the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross called for the reopening of all crossing points to allow in aid. This came as the Israeli occupying authorities imposed new restrictions on aid entering the Gaza Strip, announcing notably that the Rafah crossing points will not be opened. Asked if such restrictions are part of the dilatory maneuvers used by the Israeli occupying authorities to put more pressure on the Palestinians, our political analyst Hamid Salhi has this to say.
Indeed, these kind of obstacles are put to pressure Palestinians to surrender, leave Palestine, give up their resistance, and since that didn't happen, starve them to death. That is the overall Israeli goal. This plan is not designed, according to the Israelis, to last. After all, we have been here before. A day before President Donald Trump took office on January 19th of this year, he orchestrated a ceasefire that lasted 2 months until March 18, only to see the Israelis going back to themselves, committing genocide. There is no evidence that this time around is different. Israelis have not changed their position or narrative. Religious fanatic leaders like Smotrich, who openly support the genocide of Palestinians, building Jewish settlements in Gaza, made his intention very clear just after the ceasefire announcement that the occupation of Gaza by settlers is long overdue. They have been patient, according to him, and determined for that to happen now. The Western media bias toward the Palestinians has not changed either, which heavily has been focusing on the Palestinians to meet the peace deal requirement, but no mentions of the Israeli obligations. The plan itself makes no mention of Palestinian statehood, which the United Nations General Assembly endorsed just recently. Yet again, in his address before the Israeli Knesset, President Donald Trump spoke for peace through strength, underscoring a realist paradigm that endorses military capabilities and excessive use of force by the state actors to establish order, and it is seen as the best method to protect their national interest, and only mentioned Palestinian twice in his speech, first at the 20-minute mark and later at the 40th in a speech that lasted over an hour. For a good peace plan, Palestinians have to be heard. As one reporter puts it, the people with the most to lose, whose world has been literally flattened with their loved ones still remain, 24 months on, buried under rubble, are shut out from the discussion entirely. This ceasefire gives us little or no reason to expect anything other than a matter of time before Israel goes back to its genocidal acts. President Donald Trump can save the Palestinians, save us, humanity, from that, but only he can do that at this point.
The enforced ceasefire in Gaza allows for prospects of rebuilding the Palestinian territory, which has been virtually devastated by the Israeli bombardments. According to the UN Development Programme Special Representative for the Palestinian, Jack Orsilius, the level of destruction in the Strip is estimated at 84% and reaches up to 92% in Gaza City. The UN estimates that the damage amounts to $70 billion, raising concerns about the huge amounts of money needed to rebuild the homes, hospitals, services and infrastructure destroyed by the Israeli strikes. The reconstruction of Gaza remains the most urgent task that could start once a transitional technocratic Palestinian committee is set up. Ask if such a committee could be set up soon and whether all conditions are met for its setting up. Our political analyst Hamoud Salhi has the following.
There are so many reasons why this committee has not been established yet. But in general, one could see that the plan has no deadline for the establishment of the committee. In fact, except for the 72 hours the plan imposed on the Palestinians to free the hostages, the plan leaves the door wide open for Israel to decide whenever it wants to move with phase 2. Point 16, for example, allows the Israelis to determine if Hamas has disarmed before it moves or it withdraws from any territories in Gaza. Similarly, this plan bypasses the Palestinians and offers no path for statehood. It puts the governing of Gaza under a Trump-led board of peace, similar to those established during colonial time, when the colonizers determined that the colonized are uncivilized to rule themselves by themselves. This plan is no different. It has no definite time when this board will pass the authority to Palestinians, only to state that the board will remain in power until the Palestinian Authority can securely and effectively take place control of Gaza. There is no explanation how will that to happen. But a glaring omission in this plan is the absence of any references in the plan to United Nations Resolution 242 or 338 or other United Nations General Resolution that favor or speak of a two-state solution and the right of Palestinians to self-determinations. So questions surrounding the governing of Gaza remain unanswered, despite President Donald Trump's announcement of the start of Phase 2 just recently. The establishment of transitional technocratic Palestinian committee is still unresolved. This is most likely will take time, and as we've suggested earlier, that the plan gives Israel freedom to decide when that committee be established and under what circumstances. And so it could be a long haul before we are at that phase. But all depends on how how serious President Donald Trump about moving forward with Phase 2 and at least start to think about the right of the Palestinians to be part of this process. And until then, this vagueness, the lack of a plan, clearly a plan that favors the Palestinians, appears to be more by design than anything else. It favors the Israelis more than anything else.
For many in Gaza, where construction is more than repairing homes, it is about restoring hope to those who have lost almost everything.
And that was the international event of the week. I invite you now to listen to a cultural program compiled and presented by Jamal Salmani. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Algiers time, for a fresh news edition.
The museums of the world are the window into the history and creativity of a particular country. It is here where visitors are able to explore the past generation and the development of the country and marvel at the historic relics and artifacts that stand as a reminder to these ancient times. Algeria, the National Museum of Antiquities in Algiers is one of the most fascinating and comprehensive museums in the country. It is where the past meets the present and where Algeria comes to life. What makes the National Museum of Antiquities so unique is the fact that it does not only showcase pieces and history of Algiers, but has a wonderful collection that has been sourced from towns and cities across the country. Having displays from around Algeria gives visitors a comprehensive look at the country. One location making the National Museum of Antiquities a very popular attraction and educational tool. Some of the rare artifacts that visitors can look forward to viewing are the totemic warriors from the Libyan period, ivory carvings, and a breathtaking coin collection. The sculptures that are located throughout the museum are magnificent and include the 3rd century child with an eagle, a sculpture from Chachel, and wonderful bronzes. The museum is also home to an extensive art collection, ancient mosaics, and dozens of priceless manuscripts. The National Museum of Antiquities has an exclusive collection of exhibits and offers an extraordinary opportunity to explore the cultures, traditions, and age-old beauty of this fascinating country. When in Algiers, visitors are recommended to add the museum to their list of activities, as they will not be disappointed at the wonders that are contained within the walls of the National Museum of Antiquities. From From the capital Algiers to the western city of Tlemcen, the town of Tlemcen is noted for its flourishing vineyards and olive plantations, as well as its carpet, textile, and leather handicrafts. With its centuries of fascinating history and rich culture, a blend of Berber, Arab, French, and Andalusian, Tlemcen is a popular tourist destination. Visitors to the town may want to take some time to explore the Tlemcen Museum, which provides an interesting overview of the history and culture of this picturesque Algerian town and surrounding areas. Originally housed in the Sidi Bel Hassan Mosque in Tlemcen, the museum collection has been moved to a college building which was built in 1905. The Tlemcen Museum occupies 2 floors of the building, and the collection includes a variety of coins and artifacts from the Almoravid 11th century, Marinid and Zayyanid dynasties. The Marinid and Zayyanid dynasties struggled for domination of the area in the 13th and early 14th century, each taking and losing rulership a number of times until Tlemcen came under Ottoman rule in the 16th century. Following a decade of resistance, Tlemcen succumbed to the French in 1842. Carved epitaphs from the royal tomb of Boudbil, the last Moorish king of Granada, who died in Tlemcen in 1494, are among the treasures to be seen at the Tlemcen Museum, as well as a marble standard cubit measure bearing the date 1328. Also displayed at the museum are some amazing oil paintings by Algerian artist Abdelhalim Hamesh dating back to the 1940s. Located in the oasis town of Beni Abbas, the capital city of the Saura area of Algeria, the Beni Abbas Museum houses an impressive display of desert fauna, fossils, and traditional arts and crafts, such as carpets, wall hangings, ceramic items, wood carvings, and jewelry. The museum, which is supported by the Saharan Research Center, displays an extensive range of different types of dates, one of the mainstay crops of oasis towns and villages in Algeria. Ancient local legend claims that the spring which waters this lush oasis came about as a miracle. It is said that a traveler pushed his walking stick into the ground, declaring that if he should die in this place, water would come out of the ground. He apparently died the following night, possibly due to lack of water, and the spring began to flow, continuing to do so to this day. The town of Beni Abbas is a popular tourist destination, and the Beni Abbas Museum provides fascinating insight into the history and culture of the town and its people. Certainly, it is well worth a visit when exploring this charming Algerian town and its surroundings.
مع إذاعة الجزائر